A whole bunch of recipe poems would follow, like this one from 1878, published in an English magazine called Fun. Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon. Bottle number 72 is Myers Original Dark Rum. I talked about this storied brand a little bit in my episode about its cream liqueur spinoff, Bottle 45, Myers Original Rum Cream, or MORC for short. Even though it's one of the most iconic Jamaican rum brands, there's not a lot of information out there about the early days of Myers. We know it was founded in 1879 by Fred Myers and his sons, who were merchants in Kingston, Jamaica. The company stayed family-owned for 2 generations before being sold to our old friend Seagram's in 1954, and then on to modern giant Diageo in 2000. We don't know much more. But if there's one thing we do know about Myers Rum, it's that they were largely responsible for popularizing a drink called Planters Punch. The drink has been around well before then, more on that in a minute, but in the 1920s they began marketing a Planters Punch rum specifically for that purpose. This included sending a Jamaican bartender to England to make Planters Punches for the British Empire exhibition at Wembley, London, where the guests included such noble personages as the Duke and Duchess of York. Their marketing prowess cemented Myers Rum as the rum to use in a Planters Punch. So what was Planters Punch? To answer that question, we first have to answer the question, what is punch? Punches are very old, with the first references in the 1600s, although they reached their peak of popularity in 18th century England. Cocktail historian David Wondrich thinks they were probably originally invented by sailors as a way of turning the distilled spirits they could get in their ports of call into something that was relatively ship-stable and more like wine in its alcohol content and character. Traditionally, punch was thought to be composed of 4 to 5 ingredients: sour, sweet, strong, weak, and sometimes spice. Strong referred to the spirit or alcohol. Sour was citrus. Sweet was sugar or another sweetener. Weak was water and or ice or sometimes tea. Spice was a frequent 5th ingredient, commonly as a nutmeg garnish, but it could also mean a spiced element right in the punch. During their centuries of empire and conquest, British sailors brought punch with them all around the world, which of course included the Caribbean islands. And that's where it became Planters Punch, as served by the plantation owners there. From as early as the 1700s, the recipe for Planters Punch was recorded as a sort of poem or jingle. 1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, and 4 of weak. A whole bunch of recipe poems would follow, like this one from 1878, published in an English magazine called Fun. A wine glass with lemon juice fill, of sugar the same glass fill twice, then rub them together until the mixture looks smooth, soft, and nice. Of rum, then 3 wine glassfuls add, and 4 of cold water please take. A drink then you'll have that's not bad, at least so they say in Jamaica. The version that comes closest to my own preference for Planters Punch is this one from the New York Times in 1908. This recipe I give to thee, dear brother in the heat. Take 2 of sour, lime let it be, to 1 1/2 of sweet. Of old Jamaica pour 3 strong, and add 4 parts of weak. Then mix and drink, I do no wrong, I know whereof I speak. In 1939, Myers updated the original recipe to 1 of sweet, 2 of sour, 3 of weak, 4 of strong, which does not rhyme, but would sell more rum, and which some cocktail fans think is a superior recipe. But as you might have guessed by now, exact proportions are not required to make a perfectly delicious drink you can call Planters Punch. If you're a My Tiny Bottles supporter on Patreon, you'll find a Tiny Bottles-inspired version I created there as the cocktail recipe of the month. If you're not a supporter yet, what are you waiting for? Now, my bottle is labeled Original Dark, not Planters Punch, although the Planters Punch brand does appear in tiny letters under the words Original Dark. That switch appears to have happened in 1979, which is also when Myers launched white and gold versions from Puerto Rico. Dark rums and Planters Punch were well out of fashion by then, so they had to do something. My bottle is plastic, with metric measurements and alcohol by volume as well as proof, so it's likely a product of the 1980s or 1990s. And because it's plastic, it's also half empty. This was well past the period when it was known as a rich and flavorful pot-stilled rum, so I'm just going to tell myself that I'm probably not missing out much by not getting to drink it pre-evaporation. Do you have a favorite Planters Punch recipe? Leave a comment below or on mytinybottles.com or at mytinybottles on social media. And since we're talking about punch, how about punching those like, subscribe, and share buttons? Cheers!